welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us online tonight. In light of the ongoing efforts to support our community around social and racial justice, the Engineering Diversity and Inclusion Council presents the third episode in our Walking the Walk Together panel series. This series features guest STEM and community leaders. It is our hope that these panels, with panelists from across the country, start conversations, educate allyship, and bring together all cultures and diversities to turn words into actionable steps. This includes informing people who want to learn more about understanding their privilege and how to leverage it in allyship, as well as turning our understanding into actionable steps that will change our communities. My name is Sarah Lopez, and I'm an incoming senior from Cupertino, California. I'm studying computer science with majors in music and in math, and I am one of the co-presidents for the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers.
Hello, everyone. My name is Evie Gonzalez. I am a rising third year studying computer science and engineering with a minor in math. And I am from San Jose, California. And I too am part of the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers as the outreach director. And I will be your live stream moderator today.
Okay, hello, my name is Darren Brown. I'm an incoming junior from Henderson, Nevada, and I'm studying bioengineering at Santa Clara University, and I'm currently the regional secretary of the National Society of Black Engineers. And I'm the background moderator.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Bermudez, and I'm an incoming senior from Folsom, California. I study bioengineering with a minor in electrical engineering. And I also go to Santa Clara, and I'm also on board with Edith and Sarah on the board of the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. And I'll be moderating the Zoom chat tonight. So for our Santa Clara students watching live on Zoom, please keep your video and microphone off. But if the chat room is open, and I invite you all to use it if you have any questions throughout the events. For anyone watching the live stream across the world, there is a Google form on the webpage for you to submit any questions throughout the event as well, which we'll be moderating. And any questions can be submitted to the Google form up here. And I'll also copy and paste the schedule for tonight's events. Also, the first part for the first hour, where we'll be having all of our panelists speak, and then also the second part where it will just be Santa Clara students.
Thank you, everyone. So just to emphasize for students in the Zoom, please feel free to throw any questions you may have in the chat or for our live stream viewers in our forum, and we will get to as many as we can. And with that, I'd love to start introducing our guest panelists for today. We're honored to have 4 panelists who are all prominent influencers and leaders in STEM and the areas that they work in. These panelists are from all around the country in order to help us bring various points of view on the issues at hand. Panelists, as we say your name, if you could tell us a little bit more about yourselves following your introduction and maybe greet the audience, that would be great.
Let's start with Fazeela Siddiqui, a former Civil Rights Eviction Defense attorney, and currently an attorney for affordable housing development law in New York City. She obtained her undergraduate and graduate degrees in organizational behavior, Spanish, social work, and law. With a background in race and poverty law, gender and reproductive justice, affordable housing, and welfare policy, she loves discussing how these areas seamlessly relate to each other. Fazeela is the founder of a website, www.prtothepeople.com. An online community where radical women of color disrupt and decolonize with joy and justice. Please follow on Instagram at PRToThePeople.
Hi there. Shall I just say hello?
You could say hello to the audience, and if there's anything that you'd like to add regarding what you're doing or any projects that you're doing, that's also completely welcome.
Yeah, sure. Hi, welcome, and thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here. Although I'm not in STEM per se, there's lots of my family members in STEM, but I do I do think that there is a lot of transference from the law and other areas. I went to University of Michigan for undergrad and master's, specifically during the Supreme Court cases around affirmative action. So it was a very heated time when I was there at the University of Michigan. And I organized on the No on 2 campaign that overturned affirmative action, and that's been switched now. And then I did my law degree in Boston. And yeah, I've been in New York City. I worked for a public defender organization in the beginning of my career. Before that, I was a program director for a Muslim women's rights organization where I was in Afghanistan and Pakistan and doing a lot of international work. And then I wanted to come home and focus more on the local issues. And recently, as you mentioned, I started PR to the People, which I think is it's an online community, and I think it's really important nowadays to get information in a way that people can digest. And so that's what the community is for. It's we are in a very unique time. In 1965, our country populace was 85% white. By 2045 to 2050, it'll be 47.9% white. And because of that, there are a lot of shifts. And we have to sustain ourselves in doing this racial equity work because it is a long fight. And so PR to the People is a place where we educate, but we also relax, enjoy, and find pleasure and have fun. And I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Fazeela.
You're welcome.
Up next, we have Tim Russ. Tim has been working as an actor, director, and musician for the past 35 years. His talents include composing, musical performances, writing, producing, directing, and voiceovers. His acting and directing credits include Live Free or Die Hard, The FBI Files, Star Trek Voyager, and iCarly. Tim recently received an Emmy Award for his directing of several commercials for the FBI. So everyone, please welcome in Tim Russ.
You're right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for the invite to participate in the forum. It's a very important topic to me presently. I think you basically outlined what I've been doing over the last 30 plus years here in Los Angeles, and still working in different areas of production, from in front of the camera to behind the camera on projects of my own that I've co-produced with other people. So still moving forward in all of that, and focusing on projects that demonstrate diversity, both in front of and behind the camera. And again, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Tim.
Up next, we have Tamara Robertson. She is the co-founder of the Seekers of Science comic, co-host of Mythbusters Jr. with Adam Savage, and Sidejinks with Johnny Galecki. She graduated from North Carolina State University as a chemical and biomolecular engineer. Noticing a lack of women in STEM professions, she moved from full-time engineering to full-time outreach in 2015, with the goal of inspiring more young girls and giving them the tools to navigate the STEM pathway with greater success.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to thank you for inviting me to be a part of this forum. And I'm hoping to be able to share some of the tools that I've learned along the way, as well as learn so much from the amazing panelists that I'm joining. As you said, I co-founded a science comic called Seekers of Science, and in it, my co-founder, Dr. Tracy Finara, who was on an earlier panel, and I tried to, in a very fun and approachable way, bring science literacy to children, as well as helping to enhance the inclusion and diversity in science by showcasing the very different faces that exist in the STEM fields, so that every child can find someone to connect to.
Thank you, Tamara.
And lastly, we have Rebecca Rosario Cahua. Rebecca is a Bay Area native. Troubled by the homelessness that plagued her city, she was inspired to start designing a difference. As her nonprofit expanded, Rebecca started creating employment opportunities in apparel manufacturing, armed with an MS in consumer science from San Francisco State University. Since 2017, Designing a Difference Sewing House has launched the careers of many young professionals in fashion through internships and mentorship. Please welcome Rebecca Rosario Cahua.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited that these conversations are happening and just honored that I was invited to be a part of them. As I was introduced, my background is in fashion and nonprofit, and my mission was really to figure out a way how to merge these two communities that I was really passionate about in the Bay Area and help support each one, just keeping the fashion industry alive by creating more opportunity for people, and then helping the homeless community by creating jobs and doing community outreach events. And yeah, that's how I started the nonprofit, then transitioned into the sewing house, and now into a mass brand that we've kind of evolved into as well.
Thank you, Rebecca. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into our panel. These questions are really intended for all of our panelists, but panelists, please don't feel obligated to respond to each question, but do feel free to jump in if you're interested in answering. So to start off, we'd like to know a little bit about the factors that motivated you to join our panel today. So how did you get started on the path, career-wise or otherwise, that led you to today's discussion?
I guess I'll start.
Great.
So for me, one of the things that I've done is really, tried to do is really build a platform, an individual brand and platform for myself. And that was really before I knew what I wanted to do. I just knew whatever I was going to do, I wanted it to be impactful. And I started using social media as a platform in order to create that presence for myself and to leverage my brand, whatever that may turn into. That started off with gathering volunteers to attend these events and help make lunches for the homeless. And then from there, that grew into helping support the launch of my business. And then it grew into, selling my own products and creating my own brand. And yeah, so I think just building a brand and a presence for myself and for my businesses. And through that, I've had people, follow and reach out and really create like a voice for myself. And through that, I have, in a way, become a voice for the community, my community of people and peers in my life. And Ricky, your outreach coordinator, happens to be one of my followers for a long time. And he reached out, that I heard that you guys were doing this, the student run. I thought it was amazing. And at first I was like, am I even qualified to speak on this topic? But the more I thought about it, the more I really understand that it's a conversation that we should all be having, even if we're considered to be qualified or not, but just a conversation that we can learn from and build from. So I'm excited to, be part of something that a part of a conversation that should be happening in every environment that we're in. And I think that's where the direction of where we're going. So it's really exciting to see that. So yeah, that's how I'm here.
Yes, were you going to go, Fazeela?
You can go. I'll go after you. No worries.
All right. I started my path down the entertainment business when I was in college. I took theater courses in St. Edward's University in Texas, Austin, and studied theater for 4 years there. Then I did another year and a half of postgraduate work in Illinois State University. Subsequently, I had moved to Los Angeles in 1981 to pursue my career. That was going to be in both music and also in acting. The acting took off in 1986, 85 actually. And working primarily as an actor in front of camera, there was never that much of an issue for me in terms of race, except for the fact that at that time, many of the roles that were being offered, a lot of them were similar in that they were portraying African-American characters, in the criminal elements, drug dealers and things like that, gang members and things. So that was something that was more prevalent at that time, the 1980s. Since that time, a lot of those roles and those opportunities, all for me anyway, did change quite dramatically. And the casts have become far more diversified. What I run into over the time that I've been acting has been the glass ceiling that might exist in terms of production, in terms of getting projects greenlit, and in terms of producing and things like that. That's where the glass ceiling tends to be a little more prevalent in terms of race. So it seems that there are a few of those opportunities are not as plentiful and available to minorities as they would as I would like them to be. But that was my path along the way. As an actor, I was very fortunate to get some breaks in my career path, and many other people that I've known personally have done well, and some have not. But I was very fortunate to have those opportunities. I had good representation, and just was here at the right time and place, and took advantage of the opportunities that came my way. And directing has been a lot more of a networking type of thing with individuals, based on what types of projects have come to me or that I have put together myself. So that's sort of been the path for me since I got here in town, and it's been my sole focus in terms of those areas.
Okay. So I have to shout out to Dr. Tracy Fanara. I think Tamara mentioned her. That's how I am here. I actually grew up in Buffalo, New York, and Dr. Tracy Fanara and I went to elementary, middle, and high school together. So that's why I'm here. But my story actually obviously begins before me, as do pretty much everyone on this panel. My grandmother was an untouchable in India. My family on my dad's side converted to Islam in order to escape the caste system, which I highly recommend Caste by Isabel Wilkerson, everyone. And through the basically affirmative action, you can say it's a very similar system. That's the only reason why I'm here, really, because of the Black domestic workers in the South, women. I know Martin Luther King gets all the glory, but it was really the women in the South who organized. And that's the reason I'm here, because of the 1965 Immigration Act. And that's why my parents literally came here. And it really changed the demographics of the country, because Robert Kennedy thought that no Asians would come, maybe less than 3,000, and they were proven wrong. So I grew up in a very, in a suburb of Buffalo. It's a very white town, let me say. There was a handful of Desis, much less Muslims. And to be honest, I love that this is a college panel, because when I was younger, I was very confused. It was very confusing. I had that dual identity. I was at the mosque on the weekends. I had separate wardrobes, the whole thing. And I think it wasn't until I was 25 that I really started decolonizing. And I think I use that specifically because there were so many messages about, self-hate, assimilation, that everything white was the best, et cetera, et cetera. And it wasn't until I was doing my master's in social work and social policy where I focused on domestic violence and how it intersects with over-policing in Black neighborhoods in Detroit and Arab and Muslim neighborhoods in Dearborn and Hamtramck, Michigan, that my whole trajectory of my career changed. And it was then that a professor of mine made me write 10 pages against Roe v. Wade. You can imagine how pissed I was, because I'm like an activist in the street marching against the Iraq War, for women's rights. And that's when I really understood the difference between reproductive rights versus reproductive justice. Reproductive rights being led by middle-class white women, reproductive justice really being started by 12 Black women in 1994 in Chicago, focusing on the whole trajectory of reproductive justice, having a baby, not having a baby, not being sterilized, etc. And that's why I went to law school. And clearly I was doing eviction defense, but when you enter a public defense organization like Legal Aid in New York City, the first thing you find out in orientation is 98% of the civil clients, the eviction defense clients, are Black and brown women. 98% of the criminal defense clients are Black and brown men. And there's a reason for that. And the intersections have to do with reproductive right justice and race and everything under the sun. That's you just follow my blog because I talk about all of this. But I think that since that time when I was 25 and I really started decolonizing, I really learned that really talking about my pathway, I've heard from people who are younger that it's just helpful to hear. And I welcome any questions from those who are confused, you know, and trying to really understand that we are living in a white settler colonial state. Let's be honest. And we are all trying to find our freedom, and we need a multiracial, multi-class, organized mass movement to really change the trajectory of our country. So I'm really excited to talk to this very diverse group.
So I would say that my journey began, so Ricky, your coordinator, also invited me to join this panel. He follows Seekers of Science and has been a colleague of Dr. Vinares and I for a while. And so he knows that the majority of what I speak on is the need for inclusion and diversity in STEM, as well as in media. My focus is definitely on getting women into those positions, but obviously across the board, we need diversity in all forms. But what I bring as a background is definitely more of the emphasis on getting little girls excited about tech and normalizing women in shops and garages. And so as an engineer, I grew up in a one stoplight town in the South. The debutante South is not very welcoming to young girls that like to build and like to wear, you know, coveralls on weekends. And so I very much was an outsider, but I also grew up in a very, you know, I was a military child, so I was on the low income, no income spectrum in my community. And so the majority of my friends were people of color, versus the white kids that, you know, I didn't have dad's credit card. I didn't have all of the things that they had. So it was a very polarized area where income, kind of like it is here in LA, where you have the people that have absolutely nothing and the people that have so much. And so I kind of grew up seeing that on a daily basis and fighting for my peers that, you know, didn't have the ability to fight for themselves or felt that they didn't have the ability to fight for themselves. And so since I was a child, I've been an ally, or what was it? The last panel, they actually said it was like the ride or die. You were like, you're an associate with them. So you were in it until the end and you were going to fight. And so I've been doing that since I was young. And I've been very blessed in the fact that, you know, I came out of my engineering career in 2015 to be able to do outreach full time. And in 2016, I joined the Mythbusters franchise, becoming one of the 4 finalists and the only female finalists in the show, which opened doors not just for further seasons, but also made it so that I'm now able to get into any school, any organization, any con, and talk to people about this. And so when I first started down that journey, I was often asked to talk on diversity and inclusion panels at the major cons. And I kind of took a step back and I said, you know, the people that are in those rooms already are having those conversations. So how do we normalize this in a way that isn't that? And so I started doing my superhero science panels where I do science of, we've done science of Aquaman, science of Batman, science of Star Wars, science of Justice League. And instead of saying we're women talking about science, or, you know, we're inclusive and diverse panel talking about science, we're just there talking about science. And people come into that room that otherwise wouldn't be there because their fandom brings them into the room. And instead of it being someone that's telling them that they should be listening to women talk about science, they're already listening. And it's women talking and it's people of color talking. And so I kind of utilize what Maynard said last time is my privilege of being invited to these panels. Every time I come, I go, okay, but I'm going to pick the panel members that are going to be there with me. And I reach out to local universities and I reach out to friends and I say, hey, who isn't being seen that's amazing in this and that should be and isn't being reflected in the fields? And it's a small thing, but it's what I'm able to do. And it's kind of me utilizing my abilities to be an ally and to bring people forward.
All right, thank you all for answering. So the next question that I have is, how has COVID impacted your lives, careers, and the lives of underserved communities from your perspective? And again, don't feel obligated to answer, but just feel free to jump in.
Well, I'll speak up. Initially, the COVID has had a direct impact on my line of work, obviously, because production has been shut down for a number of months since we started to do the lockdown. Given the nature of the work that I'm in, it requires a lot of close contact with the actors and crew and parts of production in terms of actual shooting and locations or on a soundstage. There is no way we can do that safely without a lot of pre-preparation, safeguards in place, et cetera. So during this time, production has literally stopped. It is just starting now to sort of creep back with a lot of restrictions and regulations and safeguards put in place. But it has been absolutely a drag. I can use the word I can use. We have not been able to actually work on camera, in front of or behind camera for since March of this year. So it's been a great big drag for me anyway.
I'll go next. You know, I'm looking outside my window. I can see the skyline of New York City, and I'm here in Brooklyn. I think that pretty much anyone in New York City doesn't know, and we all know a lot of people who've passed away from this epidemic. I know personally, gosh, I can't even count. I think 11 people, mostly my friends' fathers, all Black or brown men. And all COVID has really done, especially since I've been working in the area of poverty justice and racial and poverty justice, is helped people to believe what we've been saying for so many years. It literally has just taken the cloth off of, you know, I think that for so many years, some of us have been viewed as these kind of bleeding heart activists, when we're saying like there is a crisis. There's a racial justice crisis. There's an economic justice crisis. The social safety net has been ripped apart. There is no social safety net. I could see it working with, you know, folks on welfare. There basically is like no welfare at all. And, you know, that really did start with Bill Clinton. Let's remember, when he ended welfare as we know it, in his when he was triangulating, and then obviously Reagan, except before that, and everyone else. And so I'm really, really, really hoping, you know, there's two paths from here. And this next election is so key. And, you know, I think the only goal I can say right now is vote, 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 vote. We have to vote against fascism. I don't care what you think about the candidates, Biden and Harris, whether you love them or lukewarm. This is a very unique election, and we literally are at a trajectory in this country. And it is so important we've on-ramped on fascism. We really have. And it is so important to stop that, elect them in, and then we push. And then we push for a lot of these structural changes, right? To make sure that over 35,000 people in our neighborhoods, in my neighborhood, don't die again within 3 months.
So I'll jump in. So I'll jump in. Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. So for me, definitely COVID impacted my work. I have a sewing contractor in San Francisco, so I contract sewing work. So that shifted. Nobody wanted to come to work. And then also business shifted. Everybody kind of took a halt, and we had to really figure out the new direction. And at that same moment, you know, being known as somebody who has the ability to sew, I was getting hit left and right, people telling me I should be selling masks, making masks, but also I wanted to make sure that something that I was selling was going to be impactful and actually really help, and not another just cloth mask. So at that same time, I met somebody who is now my partner, and we partnered and co-founded a brand together, O2 Nanomask, and it's basically her background and her company is in material science. And she had developed a fiber, and this fiber is created into a filter, and now that filter is being used to be put into our mask. And so it was a really unique opportunity, and we basically just had our full hope and trust in each other to jump in and kind of pivot our careers and merge both of our employees and our teams together in order to create something that we thought would really make an impact. Through doing that, we also decided to, figure out how we can reach the most people we can to get this mask out. So we launched a buy one, give one initiative. And for every mask purchase, we're donating one to an essential service worker in need. And as I'm not exactly sure how to say your name, Fazeela was just mentioning, like, the blanket was lifted, and through this COVID and then the injustice happening, it was really in our faces, and also bringing to light that the people who are suffering the most on both ends are people of color. So we're also targeting people of color to donate these masks to, because they are the most vulnerable, and in getting sick and actually dying from COVID, and also getting harassed by police when wearing masks, and a lot of or when not wearing a mask, getting in trouble more often than somebody else, or getting fined. So we pivoted, and we kind of had to, but through all this, I think there's a lot of opportunity that has come up, and now I've pretty much stopped doing what I was doing, and I built for 3 years, and now pivoted into this brand, and there's a lot more opportunity and impact that I can create by partnering with this other woman who has her team and her backing her education, and she's in material science and engineering and technology, and it's a world for me personally that I'm not too familiar with. I'm a fashion background and more philanthropy background, and now putting all these things together, we're able to really make an impact, and that would have never happened. And if all this didn't come to light, and it is in a way an opportunity to not only pivot and learn from, but also help people and figure out how what you're doing can support what's going on around us, and not being blind to it, but also just figuring out how we can support our personal initiatives and our business somehow, and contribute to what's going on around us.
For me, it's kind of similar to what Tim was saying. Like, I'm in the industry, and so the industry here in LA has completely kind of stopped, and it's slowly starting to come back. But for me, I was lucky that in the initial stages, I had relationships with different science programs and was able to actually help them create content for the kids that are at home. That, of course, though, it's something that we recognize in Seekers of Science as a comic, because we give out free digital copies of the comic. But all of the programming that people are talking about kids having during COVID, they're neglecting the fact that over 35% of America still doesn't have internet in the home. And so there's a large amount of the population that's being left behind. It's not just that they can't see the latest shows anymore. Now it's a question of, are these kids getting to have the education that they need? And when you add to it that those kids are probably similar to the family I grew up in, where both parents were outside the home working multiple jobs just to make ends meet, those kids don't have someone that's going to help reinforce the subjects that they may not understand by themselves. And teachers right now are having to learn how to use this new technology to teach, and they're having to try to figure out how to keep kids engaged with Zoom. And so for me, one of the biggest things that I've been trying to figure out with COVID is like how to help get more programming out, how to reach those kids that aren't otherwise able to see the internet or able to get on Zoom. A lot of schools are trying to find ways as well to help that, whether it's giving hotspots to kids. But again, I know that the community I grew up in, no one's getting hotspots. They're not getting computers at home. And so it's something that I worry about with COVID. And then also I live in downtown. And so I'm about a block from Skid Row, and I see that there aren't masks available. No one's giving masks to the homeless that are on the street, and they're so densely populated. And it's kind of a daily thing to see new people getting sick, and to see, before there were other issues with illnesses spreading through that community, but now with COVID and how easily it spreads, it's something that's really affecting them widely. And the initial phases, they were picking up people and taking them to hotels and trying to get them to other places. But if you think about it, the people that are living on the street, you know, most of them are already autoimmune compromised. They're may not be trusting. I don't know that I would want to get in a van with someone I didn't know that promised me they were going to take me somewhere safe. And they don't have the information that we have, again, because they don't have the internet, they don't have the news. So it's something I feel like being here in LA, the impact and what's going on with COVID, just like Fazeela said, in New York is very prevalent. It's very obvious. And it's something that can feel like you have no power and no ability to help. But as Rebecca is doing, there's always a way to utilize your skills to be able to help. And so for me, that's been teaching content and building content for educating. But for each of us, we have a different skill that we can bring to the table to help everyone now, especially during COVID.
Thank you, guys. Okay, going off of what you said, I would like to ask, what keeps you guys motivated and driven towards invoking change and making a difference when things seem really bleak?
I'll just say love.
For myself, it's the desire to have a hand in portraying images of minorities on the screen in a positive light and a more diversified light. You know, for the longest time, a lot of you know, what we're faced with now and what we're dealing with now is all conveyed by the media. Everyone is buried in the media. It has a tremendous influence on young and old, whether it's television shows or commercials or whether it's the internet. The screen is where everybody is focused. So to me, the more positive images you see minorities being portrayed in social circumstances and cultural situations, storylines and things like that, the more I think people are going to become accustomed to it and used to it. And I think that may have an effect in swaying people, particularly the young, who are growing up with whatever the TV shows might be or the movies or whatever that, you know, these kinds of things. It's really important that they see the images that are positive, not negative all the time. And if it's in a fictional setting, it doesn't matter as long as you see them in strong, positive roles with virtue. And I think that's a huge impact. And I personally want to remain in the business as long as I can and working in that area. Again, both in front of and behind the camera as well, opportunities for people in production also.
And I think hope is something that I want every child to be able to have. I want them to know that where their story began doesn't define where it ends, that they do, and that there is hope to be able to make a change if you want to. And it won't be easy, and you'll probably have to work 10 times harder than everyone else. But if you're willing to do it, you know, that tenacity and that relentlessness is what's going to make that difference. So obviously a lot of what mine is hoping to normalize for little girls to that they can be in shops and they can be technical and they don't have to be one way or the other. And that it's not just white men that are scientists and engineers, but it's also just whatever they want to be. You know, I want little girls to know that they can be engineers or they can be princesses or they can be whatever they want, just as much as I want little boys to know the same. So that hope of being able to change the future and not feeling locked in the narrative that you were given as a kid, I think is really important, because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that change and that ability to make a change from where you were supposed to be.
So for me, I definitely just the opportunity to impact is really exciting to me. It's encouraging and it's empowering when you're able to see something that you do actually make a small impact on somebody's lives or in your small circle of your peers. And that right there has allowed me to keep going and keep me motivated through so many circumstances. And also, you know, inspiring women that may look like me to be in positions that you don't traditionally see them, and just what Tamara was saying, very same things. Like a lot of times I am the only woman in the room that may look like me. And it's been like that all my life. And it's exciting to see people that have been grown up through volunteering with me. I've been organizing these events for 7 years, and being able to see girls start like 6th grade and now going to college and entering some type of empowering roles as starting the same homeless feeding club at their school, and just really seeing the impact that influence that I had on that one person. And it's pretty amazing to see. And, you know, she may not have seen herself in that light. She didn't see me in there. And a big part of what I've always wanted to stand for was not changing who I was, how I wanted to dress, how I looked in order to sit in those rooms or in those tables. And those people, like, I can walk in and be myself and enjoy my fashion, enjoy my style, and not have to change the way I look or speak just to feel like I belong, and just belong because I earned my spot there. And earning your spot there for me, or belonging, doesn't necessarily mean you have to follow in somebody's path. But for me personally, the fashion industry was very, I went to New York on a fashion study tour when I was my first year in college. And I went to a bunch of design houses. And I remember we did like a tour that I looked around, and every single one, not one person looked like me, spoke like me, dressed like me. And that was shocking to me, because all I knew was my small circle, and everybody in my circle looked like me and was. And then when I went there, I was like, wow, if I want to enter this corporate design fashion world, I have to change everything about myself, the way I dress, my style, everything, in order to fit in. And I was like, I don't want to. And, you know, I don't want to. And I'm going to figure out my own lane, whatever that is. I don't know, but it's going to be being my authentic self, representing my community and where I'm from, and merging my passion for community. And fashion doesn't have to be this cutthroat like industry, but it can, and it's, I guess, similar to, I guess, the entertainment industry. And I've dabbed into that world as well. And it doesn't have to be that. It can be about community. And through my initiative of feeding the homeless, then I merged that with my initiative with fashion, and then created Designing a Difference, which impacts and touches on both subjects that I was really passionate about. And then just being able, and that right there is just pretty cool to see that I didn't have to change myself, and I could still be the boss, even though I may not look like the traditional boss in a lot of people's eyes. But, you know, yeah, so, and stuff, I guess just the people really keep me motivated in times of like, I'm tired, and people are like, oh, when are we doing another event? When are we feeding the homeless again? I'm like, all right, let's do it. You know, and it's like, I didn't even know. When I first started, I was planning to do just one event, and then everybody started messaging me, when's the next one? And then I was doing it for every month since then for like 5 years. And then now it's going to be 8 years this year, but we've slowed down. Now I'm doing it once a year or twice, because it's a lot. But ultimately, that's what motivates me, the people, the small impact, and the ability to, and the opportunity just to see small changes.
All right, thanks everybody. We just have one more question before our closing statements. And the question is, from your experience, what do you think college-age students and the general populace could do to make a change? Are there any calls to action that we or the industries that we will soon work in should be listening to?
I can say something. For college students, for making a change, I think if there's one thing I can say, it is, do not be scared to use your authentic voice. I think the times have changed, and they are changing, and that different perspectives are needed and are actually being heard more. And I would say that for the folks in industry, whether you are a manager or different levels, it is making space for that, because I have experienced and I have seen, and through colleagues, when people can bring their full selves to work or to the job or anywhere, and their full selves can make other people uncomfortable, especially if you're a person of color, because you have to understand that the norm, quote unquote, the base is really based on, you know, how a white heterosexual male is. So everyone that veers from that makes things a little bit uncomfortable, because the norm in all of these organizations and settings is based off of a specific type of person. But I think it's really important to really examine biases, create spaces. My boss right now is a white male, and he's amazing because he is such an, like, I feel like I'm so blessed to be in the space I am now, because I am told just be like, be yourself, do not filter, like just, sit, be you, politically in every way. And I'm almost 40. I mean, I got to this place finally at the age of 39. I turned 40 next year. It took that long for me to get into a place like this. So I think that's good news. And I think that's because of a lot of activism, the Black Lives Matter movement, etc. Is if you're not your authentic self and you hide parts of yourself, it really affects other parts of you psychosocially, and it's all around. The organization will be better. Individuals, the collective will be better that way.
I'd have to agree with Fazeela, like finding your voice and maintaining it and not being afraid to be assertive. Because like she said, you're going to face a lot of people that like, this is the standard quo. And especially in tech, you hear all the time, well, this is the way it's always been done. And if you want to actually push us forward as a humanity, like we have to innovate, we have to change, we have to be open to new ideas. And the way that that's going to happen is by all of you taking your seat at the table and denying the ability to be pushed away from it. I also want to echo her vote. That's probably one of the most important things that you guys can do, is to go out and vote. But also, I would say as college students and into your career, make sure to always look back and figure out who's being left behind and help them to move forward. Because I think that there's a lot of room for this. I know, like as an example with women, we like to always say that men are holding us back, but the one thing men do really well is when they get to the top, they turn around and they find someone that looks like them and they pull them up. The trope of catfighting women is alive and well, especially in science and technology. So one of the things that I always make sure I do is I turn around and I find the women that are struggling or the women that are being overlooked, and I amplify and I pull them up. So just make sure to do that, not just with peers, but also with the younger generations. One of the coolest things that some engineering firms that I've seen have is they have these STEM educational boxes that you can just borrow from them and go to classrooms and teach kids as an offhand thing. ExxonMobil has one, for example, and I've literally told every college student that I've talked to since finding out about this program that if your company doesn't have one, help them build one and go out there in the community, go to the kids that no one else is talking to and get them excited about something that's going to help lift them from where they are to the next stage of their life and give them hope of a different path. So, that's kind of what I would say is just make sure you're helping everyone around you and you're lifting each other up, because if we win, we win. And if not, we're just going to keep failing.
I would say that I have to echo Tamara and Fazeela as well as far as the importance of voting. It is profoundly important right now. This year, this moment in time is absolutely critical to our future. People do not realize how fragile our democracy is at this point, given the circumstances that we are under. It is under full assault from the top down. And I grew up during the Civil Rights era. I grew up when John Lewis was protesting MLK and the Vietnam War riots and things. I was around during all that time. This country was torn apart, but it is nothing like it is now. At least at that time, we had two political parties that understood what justice was about. So we have that not at all. Young people are the ones that typically begin the revolutions. Young people are usually at the forefront of the revolutions. And that would mean you students in college, you guys are connected to the whole world now. Nothing like when I was growing up. You have the internet, you can speak to anyone in any place on the planet instantly. You guys can coordinate. You all can organize. You can work with activist groups that are out there fighting for equality, fighting for justice, and you can be involved in all of those things. But at the same time, you do have to get out and participate in the political system. You have to be aware of what is going on with your government, how your government works, so that you know when something is going south, why it is and what it is, and you can stand up against it. So I say, be focused on what's happening, not spending so much time with the social media playing games. You got to get serious. This is the reality. This is your future right now. This year, this November is your future, is on the line. If we don't start to turn things around from what we have right now, this is historic. This is absolutely historic. I can't emphasize enough. So stay focused, gather your friends and have their friends gather their friends, and become active in what's happening in your government, in your community, in your state, and let's make some changes. Definitely get out to vote.
I honestly, you guys said everything that needs to be said, and I'd rather have that be the closing statements. So thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for such a meaningful conversation. Now it's time for each of our panelists. If you'd like to say a 30-second closing statement, please do so. First, we will start with Fazeela.
Thank you so much for having me. I, of course, would love to continue any of these conversations. I think my Instagram is on the ad on Ricky's page at PR to the People. PR, by the way, means love in Urdu and Hindi. It's a new take on power to the people, radical love. And I would love for you all to join and continue these conversations. And if anyone wants to message me, has any questions, if I could be helpful, I'm so happy to, to be that person for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Fazeela. Next up is Tim.
Yes. Thank you once again for having me here. I appreciate it. And to my fellow panelists who are absolutely amazing. I work in the business of make-believe, so it's not quite so. You guys are doing the real thing, and I'm very impressed and honored to have shared the time with you. And I appreciate your efforts and on the fields that you're working in. Just really remarkable. I am on Twitter, TimRuss2 on Twitter. And you can follow me there. The students, I post quite a bit about what's going on, a lot of politics, miles of it, keeping as many updates as I can on what's happening and opinions and things like that. So if you'd like to follow me there, that would be great. Otherwise, I again appreciate you all coming in and listening, and I hope that you go out and join the fight with the rest.
Thank you, Tim. Now Tamara.
I just want to thank you all for letting me be a part of this conversation and for starting it. I think it's amazing that you guys are doing this series. It's definitely a conversation that needs to continue beyond just these panels. And I hope that it's something that all of you students are going and taking this to your groups, that you're meeting with social distanced and continuing these discussions. And to all of my panel members, thank you so much. I've learned so much from all of you today. And I'm just so happy to have been a part of this conversation. And I'm on Instagram, The Real Tamara Robertson. I'm also linked in Ricky's post. So just reach out, DM, and if you guys have questions and want to continue the conversation, like let's keep the noise going. We have to elicit more change.
Thank you, Tamara. Lastly, we have Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. Just thank you so much for creating this platform, for sharing it, for keeping this conversation going. I'm honestly so inspired and motivated by the generations coming behind us. You guys are the most aware, educated people coming, in generations coming, and use that to your advantage. Speak up because you have this insight that other generations don't have, and just bring that into everything that you do, work, don't be scared to open this conversation. This should be the new norm. And yeah, I'm excited to be a part of this conversation. Thank you. And if you want to follow me, Instagram will probably be the easiest just because I have all my channels on my bio. So it's at Rebecca Cahua. Last name is spelled Cahua, so pretty easy to find. And again, thank you all. Great meeting the panelists as well. And yeah.
Oh, and I was going to say also I'm on Instagram as well. It's TR Vulcan, TRVULCAN on Instagram as well.
All right. Thank you, panelists, for making the time today from your busy schedules to join us from wherever you are right now, and also for sharing your stories and helping us further the conversations on such important issues during such an important time in our history.
Thank you, students from Santa Clara and everyone across the world for tuning in. This event has been recorded and will be posted up soon on our website. Now I'd like to take the time to thank all of our incredible volunteers today, including my fellow moderators, panelists, staff, faculty, students, and Ricky Padilla for making this all possible. Please mark your calendars and join again on Thursday, September 10 at 6 p.m. for our next live panel discussion, featuring co-creator, host of Warrior Outsiders, and 49ers pre- and post-game anchor on NBC Sports Bay Area, Grant Liffman, environmental health and safety engineer, Paulina Castellon, marine biologist known as the Mother of Sharks, writer, author, public speaker, and founder of the Fins United Initiative, Melissa Cristina Marquez, and finally, the CEO of Kingmakers of Oakland, who was also named as the leader to learn from by Education Week magazine, Chris Chapman. Please help spread the word and be on the lookout for promotional materials coming out on social media. And just as a reminder to all Santa Clara students on the call, if you're interested in speaking more with our panelists, remember to join us on Zoom shortly after the conclusion of this event for a special Talk After Walk event with our panelists. The Zoom link has been shared in your SU email this morning by Ricky.
Thanks, Ida. And Fazeela, did you have something that you wanted to say earlier?
Oh, no.
Oh, all right then, we're chilling. So to the general public watching our live stream, I want to leave you with this. There is a long history of oppression, racism, brutality, and white supremacy in this nation and in the world. However, there are steps that we can all take moving forward to turn our words and thoughts into actions and to rid society of these practices. May we all leave here today with more tools to turn our thoughts, our words into meaningful action and to build up our community. I would like to leave you all with a quote said by John Lewis. And that quote is, "If you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation to do something about it." I hope to see you all on September 10th, and good night.